You know, with the journaling, I think that Rudolph and I think for one, Rudolph comes from a place you don't have exposure to it, Rudolph. So I don't think it's something that you relate to. And for me, I felt that it's a very limited topic. So that's why I gave you the option to choose if you would rather than talk about the herbalism or if you've got something else in mind. So I'm
Yeah,
happy with that.
girl, I'm glad. Thanks.
Yeah, so just full disclosure from my side, I don't keep a diary. I also don't do journaling. Um, so maybe it's just tools I've never really considered, or understand how it's being implied. We
Hmm.
had sure, I can't remember, it was tail end last year, Ellie, if I remember. We did the vision boards, and up until that point, I've never even considered using a vision board.
I was actually going
So
to ask the same question. I
sure.
was going to put you when you said you didn't do journaling, and I was like, guys, what about vision boards? I mean, and yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned the word vision board.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously, I know there's other mechanisms, like especially if you've got like a self-image issue, where you look yourself in the mirror and you say, you are a winner, and whatever motivates you, or the lack of motivation, you address those things. So I know there's mechanisms like that, but talking about things like the vision boards, that you, and it goes further than, well, it's got like deeper meanings, where your yes, mirror affirmation. Wait, tongue twister here. But even the colors, what is associated with money, what is associated with love, what is associated with spiritual wellness. That's all things I've never considered or even knew about. Let me put it that way. So maybe I grew up under a rock or something, but
No,
it's
no.
all,
See, the
it's
thing
all
is,
coming up.
journaling for that's why we structured it. Remember, I told you in the beginning about the structured journaling.
Yeah.
That's why when you do the program, the 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 structure is set out for you. So we kind of like you would get a formula. Like Ray says, I'm still waiting to use Pythagoras' formula. So we developed formulas for you to make it in a more, because you could be all over the place with your emotions. When you start working with your root chakra and your inner child, then that's when we start at the basics, at the survival, at the emotional survival right now and where you want to be. So through the journaling phase, you'll be asked questions, and some of them will be easy for you, and some of them will be challenging for you. So therefore, you're not just writing things into a book blatantly, like just like that. You're actually structuring the way you're processing information, because it's data in, data out. So data in is you writing down the questions. Data out will be your perception at the end of that
Yeah.
session or at the end of that week, because now how you felt to how you feel about things now is starting to change. Motivation, lack of motivation. I think a lot of people just lie to themselves to give them a reason not to do something without being motivated to do something. Because what happens is motivation comes when there's consistency in what you're growing. Therefore, I'm now motivated to continue doing what I'm doing. Motivation is not about I need to be motivated before I can do something. And that's the lie people tell themselves. Getting into that motivational stage is uneasy. It's like it's uneasy. It's like going through that birthing experience. And that's what the rebirth, once you've done the ascension, you've done the rebirth. You're coming and seeing life as a new. But you've got to structure yourself in a way that is building the foundation, putting up the pillars, and then putting in the walls, and then putting in, the electricals, and then putting in. So you're building your own house
Yeah.
by formulating that structure so that because you can't build a house without building plans. So
Right.
that's the thing, working through the process. It's like building a house. You start with the foundation, and then you got to, get the
Yeah.
Yeah. Work
sides and
your
get the
way up.
pillars and so on.
And
So
then
therefore, you're building the foundation structure to be able to build that house for you the way that you're now designing it, instead of the way that it's designed. You're demolishing, previous design, and we're building a new foundation.
Right. It kind of brings back, and L'Oreal, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking any shine away from you. It's just that both concepts are so similar. That's why I keep bringing Teaspoon back to the conversation. But it kind of brings me back to what he's teaching too about changing the identity at the bottom, right? So when it comes to, and I'm just going off what Ray is also saying here, and I relate strongly to that, is that to believe the affirmations, you need to, I feel like, start with the belief system. You know, you have to put some beliefs in place to actually start believing those affirmations.
No, but you can also
It comes down to that foundation you're talking about.
But you also need to release certain belief systems that are holding you. Like this, your beliefs, so certain belief systems are outdated. Because again, that could be projected on you from someone. Because like, remember early on when Ray says, it was like a witch burnt at the stake. When I was doing my past life reflexology, they also asked me the same question. I joked about it. I have this feeling, I was like, I laughed because I got vitiligo all over my body. So when she asked me, she's like, and these white marks, and I laughed and I made a joke. Oh, I was burnt at the stake in one of my previous lives, and she was like, "Oh, so you know?" But I was joking about it. And the funny thing is, looking back at my mom and my grandmother, like my grandmother was really religious. She was a Jehovah's Witness. So there was none of this growing up. There was none of anything. We were shielded from this. We had good dresses, you know, you go to their meetings, very cult-like for me. But anyway, so my mom loves things about anything about witches and like monsters and all of these things and UFOs and aliens and all of these things. And she obviously, and I'm thinking it's so weird because coming from my grandmother, these things were very frowned upon. But you still get to grow up having your own belief system, knowing that your parents didn't instill this into you, but it's firmly what I believe in. So you still get to nurture that, even if no one else is telling you don't believe that, don't do it. But into you in your life that you know this is true, that's you stepping up into your own power. Even if it goes against other people's belief system, it's whether you are staying true to what you believe is right for you, or do you get influenced by other people saying that is wrong, you shouldn't be believing in this, you don't know what you're dealing in.
Right.
So I grew up like that, not having, and then my grandmother, funny enough, she has vitiligo all over her. So I'm like thinking, I wonder why she's so religious in this life, because in her past life something must have happened to her that she obviously changed something in this life to not be burnt at the stake again. And I put it like that. So it goes quite deep if you're looking back at how your life, your child, your parents, your grandparents as well. Like I said, you never had access to all of these things that we have access to now.
I want to come back to what you were saying about when you start, you know, speaking up and about things that you believe in. That's when you're empowering yourself, and it goes, even if it goes against the agreement or beliefs of other people. That brings me back to this thing where people say, fake it till you make it, right? And that's something that I also find in the wellness environment sometimes, is where people promote this thought. But doesn't that take away from that foundation, from that authenticity that it's promoting not doing the work to set that solid foundation to get to a point where you can truly empower yourself with your beliefs and things like that?
I don't know. I did the fake it till you make it. I gave it a try. For me, it worked because if you do it long enough, you start believing in it. Remember that. It's because you're being consistent on faking it that you're actually doing the work. People don't realize by doing nothing, you're still doing something. So you think that you're adjusting yourself out of doing something, but you're like, oh, I'm not doing anything, but you're actually still doing something. Regardless, you're still thinking, you're still doing, you're still moving. So, yeah. What was the question again? Sorry, I got off track there.
The fake it till you make it.
No, the fake it, yes. I did it. I remember I was in a really bad space in my life, and I felt like I really just needed to change my attitude. And I think I was, because I was fighting with myself and I was stuck in my own head. I decided, I also heard that fake it till you make it. So I said, fine, I'm going to try it. I'm going to fake being happy, but at the same time, while I am faking it, I should also feel it. And then I started feeling that fakeness and it started becoming real because I started enjoying the way that I was putting things, because even though I was faking it, I was still doing something. But until
Okay.
it became real for me, until that fakeness was actually starting to present itself as a real emotion, a real way, in the sense of when I used to spread happiness. I would have the shittiest day, but I'll take a note, a big card, and I'll write there, I'm in the vortex, I'm in this, and I'm having the best day, and I'm wishing everybody the most amazing day, and I used to post it on social media, but I was having the shittiest day, but that's how I wanted to feel. So I had to keep putting out there the way that I wanted to feel so that I could start feeling that way. That's how you fake it until you make it. But again, eventually, you're going to find yourself shifting into different areas where you start becoming true to yourself when you're doing things. And like, I don't need to fake it anymore because now I'm doing it. Now I'm doing it for me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it
Okay,
depends
now.
on where you are. You either use that fake it to make it as motivation, or you truly lying to yourself.
I want to add to this. I had a bit of a revelation in the comment section. Um, I'm not closed-minded. Yes, it does feel like not genuine and like inauthentic to me when I do these like long-winded affirmations, and actually have an app that encourages me to do these things. But I just realized that you can also maybe use it to challenge negative beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I can use a harsh example. If you're feeling something like worthlessness, you can then tell yourself you are worth it. It's not a lie and it's not necessarily fake. You are just pulling yourself away from that extreme that is not true, which is
Right.
the feeling of worthlessness. So I think in that way, affirmations can have value actually, and we all have negative self beliefs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe structure it in a way where you can believe it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, Ray. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. Ellie, I think we rooted the same way, like more in reality. Um, you know, you look at the what's in front of you,
Yeah,
the you know,
absolutely. And the reason I bring up the fake it till I make it, because I also perceive that as like an affirmation. That's something that hits home for me quite strongly because it's something that is promoted all the time, but it's something that I can't relate to, not to speak down on it because I know that it works so well for so many people. But for me, it falls back into that category where I feel like I'm trying to bullshit myself. I'm trying to trick myself, you know? So I'm trying to
Because
find
you're a
authenticity in
person
it.
who go-gets already, so that means you're already a go-getter, so that you know that you could just put in the work instead of faking it. But the thing is, then what is stopping you from originally putting in the work?
yeah. But I hear what
So,
Sai is
so I just
saying.
repeat that last bit again.
I said, then if you're a person who finds that fake it till you make it, and if you feel like it's realism, and that you could originally just put in the work from the get-go instead of having to fake it, then what is stopping you from doing the work originally?
Oh, right, I'm with you. Right. So for me, personally, that's kind of why I've delved into this whole healing process. For me, from where I'm standing, I feel like I am doing work, but I'm trying to learn better tools to do that. So I think
Hmm.
that's what appeals both you and Teaspoon's content so much to me, is because it's teaching valuable tools on how to go through that process.
Yes. Yes, it's the tools, definitely. You can't lift an egg with a um, spaghetti holder. You gotta have the
Right.
right tool to be able to lift the egg out the pan. So
Mhm.
you gotta find the right tools, and sometimes you've also got to use with what you have to make it until you get the next tool for the project. So again, as long as you're doing something to keep moving forward rather than staying in that stagnated place, The stagnation is not always a bad thing. It's just if you stay there for too long.
Mm.
Right.
But yeah, going like hearing Sai talk about the affirmations, I don't think I will dog on them. Um, because like she said, you are doing something when you
Right.
are saying these things. Even if it feels like not genuine, it's still doing something. And my belief is that there's power in the tongue. So
Yeah.
if you're constantly going to say stuff like my anxiety, you're pulling anxiety towards you, you're owning it. But if you can maybe say something like externalize it, like I'm experiencing anxiety right now, then it's like kind of an external factor. The same way is like, yeah, you speak things into the universe. If you're gonna constantly say you're a dumb person, then
Yeah. And why was I
Right.
speaking?
stuff
That
might
was
happen to you. Stuff might
yeah,
happen to you in that
exactly.
life.
Exactly. This
Yeah,
is like throwing daggers at yourself.
absolutely.
Because it's so interesting. As quickly as, and I mean, I'm using myself as an example because I can only use myself as an example. I can't speak for anybody else. But as quickly as I can say, I don't believe the positive affirmations, if I had to say a negative thing like, you know what, I could have worked harder today, I will very quickly believe that. So when
Yeah.
you say there's power in words and things, I get that because that saying that will make me work 10 times harder next week.
Yes,
I want to
absolutely.
share something with you ladies now that we're speaking about, and I use these and I don't use all of them, I only use the ones that are relevant to the experience that you're going to have. Now,
Us ladies
this
at
book was
Rudolph.
actually, this, this is a document that was actually written in 1924, if I'm not mistaken. And this was done with the Swami Yogananda of India, um, Street Swami Sri Yogananda, like for his love and devotion. This was done in 1924 in Los Angeles, in the USA. So there's affirmations that they were using, and then they did a whole test on it. I'm actually still trying to find out more information, but it's a 31-page document about how the words are saturated with serenity, conviction, faith, intuition, are just like highly explosive vibrational bombs, which, when let out, are sure to explode the rocks of difficulties and create the change desired. Avoid speaking unpleasant words, even though they are true. Words must be intoned accordingly to the convictions within. Sincere words or affirmations repeated understandingly, feelingly, and willingly are sure to move the omnipresent cosmic vibrational force and render you aid in your difficulty. Only appeal to that force within infinite confidence, casting out all doubt and the spirit of looking for the desired result. If you do not do this, your appealing attention is deflected and sidetracked from its objective mark. Besides, you cannot sow the vibratory prayer seed in the soil of cosmic consciousness and then pick out it every minute to see if it has germinated into the desired result or not.
Right.
And that's almost 100, well, just about 100 years ago. Just shows
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
right? Still relevant today.
And this was actually once a disclosed document, and now it's available. It was once closed, like a case closed or like
Yeah.
what? Yeah, closed documents, and then they eventually opened it. You can go a lot onto the CIA websites and stuff and go see the undisclosed or the undisclosed.
Yeah. It will. Yeah.
Yeah, if I got my terminology right there. Anyway,
Declassified.
yeah, declassified. That's the word, declassified. There's a lot of things that teach you about meditation, about these affirmations that that were used in scientific research. Why do you
Yeah.
think you are not allowed to connect with dolphins? Do you know that it is illegal to communicate with dolphins?
I did
I
not
should
know
not
that.
know that.
That's interesting.
There's a little rabbit hole for you.
Yeah, I know there's some therapy, that involves swimming with dolphins. I don't
Swimming,
know.
but not communicating.
Yeah. So
You're
that I
not allowed
did.
to invent something, yeah, you're not allowed to invent. There's a whole law, there's a marine law based that you're not allowed to communicate with dolphins.
That's interesting. So Michael is asking, is ego a bad thing?
Ego, I think, is a defense mechanism. Ego is not necessarily a bad thing. Your defensive mechanism might just be high, that you have to be ego, or um, you have to put on this thing because your ego, it just protects you, because that's why you get into that state of egotism, or the eccentric side of it, is because there's either something that needs to be protected, whether it's my truth, my mask cannot be revealed. There's wounds that I am protecting, so therefore it comes off as defensive. Because ego people, like, you can have people who are cocky, they can have people that are just, I'm always right, ego, because that's coming from a place of they don't know what it is to be wrong, they can't handle being wrong. So if they find themselves being exactly arrogant, yeah, arrogance is also one. Arrogance is also just a defense mechanism as well, because if you're being arrogant, ignorance, kind of like the same thing, you're emotionally ignorant, so that if you become ignorant, you become arrogant, because you're not aware of other people's feelings or their concerns, so you'll be arrogant about it. So you're making sure, because if you had to now not submit, but if you had to show empathy in this kind of situation, you might find yourself being called weak, but that's a self-judgment. So that's a very big inner conflict with people. Like, if you have to chow mushrooms, if you eat mushrooms, you have a thing called ego death, where your ego goes to die so that you can have a reset. And then you start to realize that that's where the inner teenager comes from, because that's where they are arrogant. That's where they have developed that ego part of them, because that ego becomes part of, like, sarcasm. Teenagers that learn sarcasm, they don't even know that they've had sarcasm. They learned that from their parents, on the way that they respond to them will be in a sarcastic way. So kids learn about it, but actually sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. Right.
But having said that, that is also a sign of intelligence.
Yeah, but
You mean
intelligence.
sarcasm?
Yes, I agree with Rudolph.
Yes.
Yeah, but I hear you, and I actually haven't thought about the arrogant and the ego as being bad. That is that gives me a bit something to ponder about, because ego can also be. I hear what you're saying. I agree with you, Loreal. But it can also come from a place, where you are overconfident about your abilities. If you know you're good at something, that can also tend or lend to be, building your ego. Yeah, pride. I think pride also plays a big role.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I have a question. So
yeah.
let's say, sorry, and don't think I'm challenging you, L'Oreal. I'm just, for the
No.
sake of the discussion, pushing the conversation to the limit. But so, in line with what Rudolph is saying, let's say there is somebody that is good at their abilities. Let's say they're an expert at what they do, right? And knowing that about themselves is that ego.
Sorry. There's a difference between ego and actually being confident. Ego can make up for the lack of confidence, but also if you are truly good at what you do, you can have confidence and you can also have ego. Ego is because the part where you get to show off. That can be ego.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's when you start to get a little above yourself. You know, that's not where you end up staying in your lane, because a person who is quite strong will know where their lane is, and then as soon as you become ego arrogant, then you start to overtake lanes, which is it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's also a time and place to use those things. Like
Right.
sarcasm,
100%.
sarcasm actually is the opposite of what you really want to say. Instead of just saying it the way it is, you'll say it in a snarky manner. There's an attitude that comes
Yeah.
Right.
behind,
I
And
hear you.
rather.
And there's like most people that are good at what they do won't have that sense of, let's say, brag. You know, they won't have that brag, that attitude that you're talking about. They're generally pretty modest about their skills, even if they are really good at what they do.
But I just wanted to say, I can actually argue modest as also being a bad thing, because if you modest, you're not, and just hear me out, just from a different angle. You can also be from a self-doubt point of view, to say, well, I don't think I'm worthy of the praise that you're getting, or the attention that you're getting. So that can also be interpreted in a negative way.
Yes.
Although generally modesty is a sign of being humble. Um,
Yeah,
so
but
yeah.
you can also be quite humble to a point where then you don't do anything. You know, you
Exactly.
won't, because now you've have this, so you won't push the boundaries of, because you've remained, you want to be seen as the humble person, or you want to remain in that stance
Right.
of, don't take the risk of being ego or prideful or things like that, because now you're being too humble that you don't overstep boundaries, and sometimes we gotta push boundaries. So that's why you know, it's whatever you feed. It can be good or bad, but it's whatever you feed into and whatever you're feeding yourself. There are people that will feed themselves or fight with themselves so that they can get to where they want to be, but there's also people that fight with themselves and still stay stuck where they are because they have pride, because they won't
Yeah.
swallow their pride. And if we had like a disagreement now, and I would have ego and and so much pride that I won't actually apologize to you. I'll carry on as normal, as if nothing would, but I will never have the pride to say, listen, Rudolph, I'm actually sorry for what I said last week. I really didn't mean to. It was. So therefore, sometimes to fix a situation, you need to swallow your pride and recognize what you did wrong.
Right.
But also the pride part comes, there's two sides to pride now, because sometimes you might have too much pride that you won't ask for help. You've been sitting here, oh God, please send people to help me. Please, God, I need help. God sends you people, but no, you got too much pride to accept the help.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
I couldn't agree more.
And then before we answer Michael's question, L'Oreal, and again, I'm not challenging you, or I'm, like I said, just for the sake of the conversation.
Nothing wrong with being challenged.
So just, when we talk about ego, is context sometimes relevant? Because, I read somewhere that ego is to some degree necessary to create self-interest, right? Because without it, we won't have self-interest. We won't put our needs. It is the thing that makes us put our needs first. Am I making sense?
Yeah. Yes, Ray wants to say an example.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the other day I was in a content creator's live and someone complimented her. Now, what this content creator does is she puts herself out there in I wouldn't say an unordinary fashion, right? So she really takes risks, and she does cosplay and stuff. And someone complimented her and said, "You're very talented." Now, a humble person would have said, "Oh, thank you so much." But she said, "I know." And to me, it wasn't off-putting at all. It was very fitting. So she needed that ego. She needs it actually, because on this platform, we also get a lot of hate, especially when you put yourself out there and you're more out of the box kind of person. And I think that was the right amount of ego, because if you ask yourself, is she not talented? No, she's absolutely talented. You can't challenge the fact that she confirmed or agreed with
Right.
the compliment.
And it's almost
And I
like
don't think it was arrogant at all. It was very
right,
fitting.
and it's almost like this, just we adopt these like little like indoctrinations from society, like we almost instinctively want to say, oh no, thank you so much, or no, ugh, but because we are taught that ego is a bad thing, we almost don't want to acknowledge that praise or accept that praise.
So I think that the crux of the situation here as well is just by the fact that she said yes, she knows. It's just a affirmation. Now I've got a tongue twister. It's just affirming that that you recognize what it was being said. So I think the biggest thing is here, in what context was it communicated? Was it said as a just a matter of fact, or was it said as maybe yes, and don't you forget it type of attitude? I think that
Right.
also comes into play as to how the circumstance goes around it as well. If the attitude was a heavy thing that accomplished the comment, then I would have said yes, okay, that person is full of himself or whatever the case might be, but it can still be uh, um, communicated in a humble way, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yes,
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 I
absolutely
agree.
100%, Rudolph.
100%. That's why I do think that, ego can be a good thing in context. Context is relevant.
Yeah, context is very relevant.
I think there's a balance within each person that needs to be made by the choices and the things that we know about ourselves. If we know that we are stubborn, you know that what it takes you, how much more you have to work to get yourself out of that stubbornness. Same thing with if you're too humble, you know that you got to come push boundaries, right? Eagerness, there's obviously a sense of self-importance and something that we should be learning from each other. Like someone who's patient, a lot of people tell me I have patience. I feel like I have no patience, and they all look at me and they're like, "Wow, you have such amazing patience," and I'm like, "Where? Where?"
Yeah.
I want to see what you're seeing. So there's a lot of things about yourself, and once you know these things, you're able to navigate. It's just that you choose to be ignorant of what needs to be done. I know that I'll give myself a timeline. Okay, I want to change this habit. I know myself, or I've got to work on my body. I'm giving myself 8 months, and people are like, "Wow, 8 months? Sure, that's a lot." I mean, like, what does your life mean to you at the end of the
Yeah.
day? What does your
Right.
life mean to you?
So Michael asked here, as Ray and I provided our thoughts, but maybe you want to as well, Rudolph and Sai. Do you think a person without ego can live a normal life without any effects?
Look, well, just once again, it's my opinion. I would say yes, you can live a normal life without the ego, but I think if you're good at something, there will be like a small amount of ego that goes with it. And I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing. But yeah, but once again, it's my opinion.
Okay. General usage for ego is always referred to the person's sense of self-worth, whether it is positive or negative. How important do you feel? I'm not talking about how, like, people who feel like talk upon other people like, oh, they must get off their high horse. If you've never been on a high horse, get on one so that you know what it feels like.
Sure.
Okay? You know, you gotta try it out. You gotta, like, because it also could be a confidence boost. It also could be like, are you doing it in a way that's judgy, or are you doing it in a way that makes life fun for you, that is harmless? Because this is why we got Hamsa, which means no harm, right? We do things as long as it doesn't harm others, doesn't harm ourselves, and then we walk through compassion. Um,
And I think the
you can
crux here is the compassion.
Look, I mean, I can tell you now, like, I always tell my boyfriend he's too humble for his own good. Like he could use a little bit of no, serious. He's like I'm like you need to step out of and but it also it's not just because it also comes with confidence and some people can be very confident and you know what and they are comfortable in their bodies but the thing is like who are we to say like what they can't have that experience because that's why they came here to have that experience because in their previous life something happened to them that they couldn't do that. So they come in this life to experience that. And we swap over. If you're a male, you could also be a female back in this life. You could have always been a female. You could have always been a male. Everybody has their own thing. I've probably been both, but not all like one after the other. It wasn't like in a sequence way. It was kind of like randomly relive. But this is, I believe that this might be my last.
I think it was Michael that brought up ego. So now we
Yeah.
got into ego.
Yeah, very, very good questions you had there, Michael. Well done. Thank you for contributing.
I loved everybody's engagement and thank you, Ellie. Ellie, you must also never worry about if a question feels challenging. You have to understand we are also because we practice this. It's good to be challenged. You know, I love being
Right.
challenged. And the thing is that you must remember I never feel challenged because you're not challenging me, you're challenging the topic.
Right.
So that I just wanted to clear. So you must never apologize to feel like if you're challenging, it's good to challenge. I like a challenge because it also challenges me in my space,
Right.
you know, to also rectify myself. I could have also have like said something in the past and now I want to change it in a different way. So this is all learning curves for us. Trust.
Right.
Every day is a learning curve, and I love having discussions. I love to like. I'm not really good at debating, so if I get the chance, I do get challenged. I do because we all can make mistakes and rectify, and I can also be corrected if someone in the comments says, "But actually X Y Z," and I feel that it resonates and it fits. I can also then change my mind and change my structure or add it to my structure.
Right. Yeah, I just never want. I feel the same way when it comes to debate. I love a debate. I love when someone challenges something that I think or believe, because it unpacks it. You know, you get to work
Yeah.
through it and come to like a better conclusion, or maybe resort to the original conclusion and find that the theory you're discussing or
Yeah.
whatever is not valid. But yeah,
You also feel like you don't want to overstep your boundaries. Like you don't want to over
exactly,
like,
that's what I
but
want to say.
don't feel yeah. No, you shouldn't have to feel like that because one, this is your life, so you could ask as many questions as you see fit, and also, and it's not coming out of an ego place. It's because you're also wanting to know. So your challenge, you might feel like a challenging question, where for me it will be like, oh my gosh, someone's finally asked that question. You
Right,
know?
right.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
don't, yeah.
just never want, yeah, I just never want anybody to feel like I'm saying, well, what you're saying is wrong because of this and this and this. That's like not where I'm
Mm.
going with it at all. I just,
No,
like you say, it's
no,
healthy
yes.
debate.
Yes, no. But don't be afraid to feel like even if it is a challenging question, even if you are challenging the person, because that shows that's also character building for you because it's not that that person might think you just overly can't see. This is the thing, you overthink it and you over consider it about things. And I know you just because you don't want to overstep and stuff, but at the same time, like it will, you shouldn't feel like that. In other words, I can't find the other words, but you can challenge. Be challengeable,
Right,
Oli. Be the challenge.
right, all right,
Be the bull. That's what I want to say. Be the bull. Challenge.
all right. Feeling offended when challenged on a topic, will that be under ego or arrogance?
Hmm.
Neither.
It depends on the response, eh? I would say it's depending on the response. Like if Ellie had to ask me a challenging question and depending on also my tone or how I respond would be either arrogant or ego or genuine.
Yeah, or it can
Right.
speak to the person's emotional state because
Yeah.
feeling offended, taking offense
Yeah.
is
Yeah. So
an
that
emotional response instead of if that's gonna drive your response, then it's not going to be that intellectual,
Yeah.
But you're also
Right.
in my
talking to
opinion.
people who have, yeah, so you remember you are talking to like the teaspoon, all of you're speaking to a lot of people who've practiced these things because we work with being challenging people and then challenging us in our stuff because it has to make sense. The only reason why you would challenge is because you're trying to make sense, or you, in this kind of
Right.
case, you're trying to gain more information rather than challenging to question their under, like, how do you know that, or whatever. So I just don't feel okay hearing second opinions.
I've seen that, Michael. I hear what you're saying. I've seen that in people.
Loreal, sorry, I just want to
Yes.
say from my side, thank you very much for joining us tonight and having these conversations. It's been really um, it's been refreshing to put it
Thank you.
mildly. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been amazing. This is really cool. Thank you. And the questions, thank you for the questions as one. And being honest, I really appreciate that. And Ellie.
Absolutely. No, thank you for being here. And thank you, Ray, for jumping in a box tonight and contributing some insight as well.
Yeah, and she's been active below, with
Yes, Ray. Let me
the
just give
link.
you a special thank you for that. You were an
Shout
absolute
out.
superstar tonight in the comments.
And everybody that came as well tonight
Yes.
to come and learn.
So I don't want to say, don't stop the live. I'm just going to drop off because my battery is also flat. And unlike some other people, I need to get up early tomorrow morning as well. So I'm going to say good night. But
Thank
the
you,
chat can
Rudolph.
continue. The chats can
Thank you.
continue.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
night,
you, Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for hosting.
100% Rudolph, but I think I'm going to end it anyway because my battery is also running low. So, yeah, I think I'll end it. But yeah, thank you so much, Rudolph, for being here. As always, you're an amazing co-host. You have amazing questions. You always do the work. You do the research. You do the homework. And I just want to thank you for that. You always go the distance. You never half-ass it.
Ellie, thank you very much. And back at you, eh?
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you, L'Oreal. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, pleasure.